I'm Sophia Reed, and I'm 31 years old. I never thought my life would turn out the way it did. The experience of becoming a mother was meant to be a lovely one, full of support, love, and care. Rather, I was caught in a nightmare where I had to struggle to keep myself and my child safe. Everyone in Willow Creek, the little town where I reside, appears to know one another. My life with my spouse, Lucas Reed, appeared steady before to the birth of my kid. Even though our marriage wasn't flawless, I thought we had a solid bond after 4 years of marriage. But after I became a mother, everything changed. At first, I thought it was just stress, sleepless nights, a messy house, and constant exhaustion. But soon, I realized that Lucas and his mother, Eleanor, weren't just impatient with me. They were watching, judging, and slowly turning my home into a place where I felt trapped and powerless. Then one day, everything reached a breaking point. The first few weeks after my son Noah was born were both beautiful and exhausting. I had dreamed of this moment, holding my baby in my arms, watching him sleep peacefully, and feeling a love I had never known before. But reality was much harder than I expected. Between late-night feedings, diaper changes, and trying to recover from childbirth, I barely had time for myself. The house, once neat and organized, was now in complete chaos. Laundry piled up, dishes sat in the sink longer than I wanted, and baby toys were scattered across the floor. I told myself it was temporary, that soon I would find a balance. One afternoon, while I was trying to calm Noah's cries, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened the door, Eleanor, my mother-in-law, stood there. My heart sank. Eleanor was always a woman of control and high expectations. She took pride in her well-kept house and strict family values. As she stepped inside, I could see her scanning the room, her sharp eyes taking in the clutter. She sighed heavily and shook her head. "Looks like you need more than a little help," she said, stepping over a baby blanket on the floor. Her tone wasn't concerned, it was critical. I forced a smile, shifting Noah in my arms. "Things are a bit crazy right now, but we're managing," I said, trying to sound calm. She walked toward the kitchen, and the sound of dishes clinking made me tense with embarrassment. "Is this how you plan to raise my grandson?" she asked, her voice sharp. Her words hit me like a slap. I had been trying so hard, doing my best despite being exhausted, but it felt like nothing I did was ever enough. Before I could respond, I heard the front door open. Lucas had arrived home. I felt a flicker of relief, hoping he would step in and defend me. But what happened next made my stomach drop. Eleanor turned to him and said, "Lucas, she needs to be taught how to take care of a home properly. This is unacceptable." I looked at Lucas, silently pleading for his support, but instead of standing up for me, he hesitated. Then, in a cold, detached voice, he said something that made my blood run cold. "Maybe you're right, Mom. Maybe Sophia does need to learn the hard way." I stared at him, stunned. The man I had married, the father of my child, was siding with his mother against me. At that moment, I realized something. I was alone in this house. The air in the room felt heavy. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked at Lucas, hoping, begging silently, that he would change his mind, that he would realize how unfair and cruel this was. But he didn't. Instead, Eleanor stepped closer to him, whispering something in his ear. I couldn't hear her words, but I could see the way her eyes darkened with control. It was as if she was giving him permission to do something unthinkable. Before I could react, I felt a sharp jerk on my hair. Lucas grabbed a fistful and yanked my head back. "Lucas, stop," I cried, trying to protect Noah, who was still in my arms, but he didn't stop. The next thing I felt was a hard slap across my face. My cheek burned, and tears filled my eyes. The force of it made me stumble, but I held on to Noah tightly, desperate to keep him safe. Pain shot through my face, but the real pain was in my heart. The man I had once loved, the man I thought would protect me, had just hit me while I was holding our son. "This is for your own good, Sophia," Lucas said coldly. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced. How did I end up here? How did the man I married turn into this? Noah started crying loudly, sensing the tension and my distress. I rocked him gently, trying to soothe him, even as my own body shook with fear. I turned to Eleanor, just hoping that she would show some humanity, that she would tell Lucas to stop. But she just stood there, her arms crossed, her face stern, as if she had expected this to happen. She approved of it. And that realization hit me harder than the slap. This wasn't just about a messy house. It wasn't about chores or responsibilities. This was about power and control. Eleanor wanted to break me down. She wanted to turn me into the kind of obedient wife she believed Lucas deserved. And Lucas, he was too blind, too weak, or too brainwashed to see what was happening. I knew in that moment that I had to leave. Not tomorrow, not next week, but now. This was no longer just about me. I had to protect my son. The room was silent except for the soft cries of my baby Noah. My cheeks still burned from Lucas' slap, but the real pain, the kind that cuts through your soul, was knowing that the man I had married had just hurt me without hesitation. I looked at Eleanor, expecting even the smallest sign of guilt or regret, but she just stood there, her expression cold, her arms crossed. It was as if she had seen this before, as if this was normal to her. That was when I understood something terrifying. This wouldn't stop. This was just the beginning. If I stayed, things would get worse. If I stayed, Lucas might hit me again, or worse. And if I stayed, Noah would grow up thinking this was normal. I couldn't let that happen. I swallowed my pride and whispered, "I understand." Lucas sighed as if he was relieved that I wasn't fighting back. Eleanor nodded approvingly, like a teacher who had just disciplined a student. They thought they had won, but in my mind, I had already made my decision. I was already making a plan. I had to leave, and I had to do it soon. That night, after Lucas had gone to bed, I sat in Noah's nursery, rocking him gently. His tiny fingers clung to my shirt, his soft breaths warm against my skin. Tears slipped down my face as I stroked his hair, my heart aching at the thought of what had happened today. I had always dreamed of giving my child a loving home, a safe place where he could grow up without fear. But instead, here we were, in a house where his father had just hit his mother while she held him. I couldn't let him grow up in this. I reached for my phone with shaky hands, my heart pounding. I had one chance to do this right. If Lucas or Eleanor caught me, I knew things could turn dangerous. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the one name I knew I could trust, Ava Mitchell. Ava had been my best friend since college. She was the only person I had ever told about the way Eleanor treated me, and though she had always suspected Lucas was controlling, I had never admitted the full truth to her until now. I took a deep breath and dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Sophia, it's late. Is everything okay?" I exhaled shakily, gripping the phone tightly. "No," I whispered. "I need your help." There was a pause. I could hear the concern in her silence. Then her voice came back, steady, determined. I'm coming. Just tell me what to do. I closed my eyes, my throat tightening with emotion. I wasn't alone. I had someone on my side, and with Ava's help, I was going to get out. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Lucas was still asleep, his deep, steady breathing filling the room. Eleanor was in her guest room, most likely resting before another day of watching and judging me. I lay there for a moment, my heart racing. Today was the day. I had one chance to do this right. If I hesitated, I might never get another opportunity. Slowly, I slipped out of bed and padded toward Noah's nursery. He was still asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. I pressed a kiss to his forehead, whispering, "We're going to be okay, baby. I promise." I had to move fast. Packing the essentials, I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started stuffing it with the things we would need. Noah's essentials, clothes, diapers, formula, and his favorite stuffed animal. My important documents, birth certificate, social security card, anything I could need in court. Cash I had been secretly saving money for months just in case something like this happened. A few of my clothes, just enough to get by. I kept my movements light, quiet, careful. Every second that passed felt like a countdown to disaster. What if Lucas woke up early? What if Eleanor walked in and saw me packing? I couldn't think about that. I just had to move. I took my phone and texted Ava. "Everything is ready. Wait for my signal." She replied instantly. "Got it. Be safe." I exhaled, trying to steady my shaking hands. Now, all I had to do was wait for the right moment to escape. The day dragged on painfully slow. I kept my movements calm and natural, pretending everything was normal. I didn't want to give Lucas or Eleanor any reason to suspect anything. I washed dishes. I played with Noah. I nodded politely when Eleanor lectured me about becoming a better wife. Inside, my heart was pounding. I kept checking the clock. Ava would be here at sunset. The moment finally arrived. The sky turned golden. The shadows in the house grew longer. I peeked out the window. Ava's SUV was parked down the street. "I'm here," she texted. It was time. Moving fast, moving quietly. Lucas had gone to work earlier, and Eleanor was out running errands. This was my only window. I scooped Noah into my arms, holding him close. He was awake but calm, as if he somehow understood that something important was happening. I grabbed the duffel bag, checked to make sure I had everything, and hurried to the garage where I had hidden a few more bags. Alice stepped inside quickly, her eyes scanning my face. She saw the fading bruise on my cheek, and her expression darkened. "We're getting you out of here right now." We worked fast, loading my bags into the car. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to focus. Diaper bag check. Documents check. Cash and phone check. I turned back toward the house one last time. This place had been my home, my prison, my nightmare. I had dreamed of a happy life here, but that dream was over. I climbed into the SUV and buckled Noah in. Ava pulled away from the curb, and as we drove off, I watched the house fade in the rearview mirror. I took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I felt something new, freedom. As Ava drove, I kept my arms wrapped around Noah, feeling his tiny warmth against me. My body was still shaking from the adrenaline, but for the first time in months, I knew we were safe. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "My place first. Ava replied, keeping her eyes on the road. You need rest, and we need to figure out our next move. I nodded, feeling exhaustion crash over me. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. We arrived at Ava's apartment, a cozy, safe space that instantly made my shoulders relax. She led me inside, locked the door behind us, and hugged me tightly. You did it, Safia, she whispered. You got out. I let out a shaky breath, fighting back tears of relief. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. After settling Noah into a crib, I sat down with Ava. I can't just run, I said. I need to make sure Lucas never does this to me, or anyone again. Ava nodded. Then we go to the police. The idea made my stomach twist. I had been scared of Lucas for so long, but now I had to be braver than ever. The next morning, we drove to the Willow Creek Police Department. I walked inside, holding Noah close, my heart hammering in my chest. A female officer at the front desk greeted us. How can we help you? I took a deep breath. I want to report domestic violence, I said. My husband, Lucas Reed, hit me while I was holding our baby. The officer's expression turned serious. Come with me. Let's get this on record. I gave a full statement, detailing everything: the slap, the hair pulling, the emotional abuse, and Eleanor's involvement. I even showed them the bruises on my face. Ava held my hand through it all. The officer took notes, then looked up. Do you want to press charges? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I want him held accountable. Within 48 hours, the police arrested Lucas at his workplace. Eleanor tried to defend him, but the evidence was too strong. My bruises, Ava's witness statement, my medical report from the hospital confirming physical assault. Lucas was charged with domestic violence and child endangerment. The court granted me a restraining order, preventing him or Eleanor from coming near me or Noah. For the first time, I felt safe with Lucas in police custody. I knew this was my chance to take the next step, ending my marriage legally. I refused to let this man control me any longer. Ava and I met with a divorce attorney, Mark Thompson, a kind yet firm lawyer who specialized in domestic abuse cases. He listened carefully as I explained everything: the abuse, the control, the fear I had lived in for so long. When I finished, he leaned forward and said, Safia, you have a strong case. With the police report, the medical records, and witness statements, you will not only get the divorce, but you have a high chance of getting full custody of Noah. My chest tightened. Full custody? That was the most important thing. I wasn't just divorcing Lucas. I was ensuring that Noah would never have to grow up around his father's violence. We filed for divorce on the grounds of domestic abuse. We requested full custody of Noah, with no visitation rights for Lucas. We submitted the restraining order as further evidence. Now, I had to wait for the legal process to begin. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own life. While Lucas was in jail, Eleanor tried everything to defend him. She called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails filled with anger and threats. You ruined my son's life. You'll regret this, Safia. Women like you destroy families. But what she didn't realize was that every single voicemail was evidence. I turned them over to my lawyer and submitted them as proof of harassment. Eleanor was issued a court order to stay away from me and Noah. When she refused to stop, she was charged with harassment and intimidation. Now, both Lucas and his mother were facing legal consequences for what they had done. They thought they could control me forever. They were wrong. Months later, I stood in a courtroom, holding my breath as the judge spoke. The court grants full custody of Noah to Sophia Reed. The restraining order will remain in place. The divorce is finalized. It was over. Lucas had tried to fight for custody, claiming I was taking his son away from him. But the judge saw through his lies. The evidence spoke for itself. Lucas lost all parental rights. I walked out of the courthouse that day a free woman. I moved to a new city, renting a small but cozy apartment where Noah and I could start fresh. Ava helped me furnish it, making it warm and safe, a true home, free from fear. I started therapy to heal from the trauma. I joined a support group for survivors of domestic abuse. I focused on rebuilding my life, one day at a time. Noah grew stronger and happier in a home filled with love instead of fear. And one night, as I rocked him to sleep, I realized something. I was free, I was safe, and I had won. A few months later, I launched a blog so that I could tell my story and support other women who were facing similar challenges. I wrote about my quest for justice, my escape, and my journey. I gave women in abusive situations resources and guidance. I started advocating for victims of domestic abuse. I was no longer ruled by my history. I had made power out of my suffering. And I knew we had won, and we would never be confined again, as I saw Noah diggle fearlessly as he took his first steps.